Beneath the neon flicker of a half-broken street lamp, a man stood frozen, clutching the elbow of a woman who could barely stand. Her heels wobbled, her breath unsteady, her reputation hanging dangerously close to ruin. This woman, Clara Hayworth, was not a random stranger. She was his boss, the same boss who rarely looked him in the eye, who scolded him for clocking in a minute late, who never once asked about the small child whose picture he kept taped to his ID badge. Yet here she was, vulnerable, intoxicated, on the verge of being dragged into the shadows by a group of men whose smiles were far too hungry. And he, Daniel Reed, a single dad mopping hallways for minimum wage, was the only thing standing between her and disaster. In that moment, the world watched silently, waiting to see whether a man who had nothing might rise as a hero. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in ordinary people doing extraordinary good, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel to support more stories just like this. Daniel had never imagined his night would unfold like this. Just hours earlier, he had tucked his 7-year-old daughter Emma into bed in their cramped apartment. He whispered a promise he made every night, that someday life would be easier. He then rushed through cold rain to start his night shift at the upscale marketing firm where Clara ruled from the top floor like royalty. He swept floors her heels clicked across. He polished glass walls that reflected awards with her name etched in gold. Yet despite her success, her eyes always carried storms beneath their shine. Tonight, the building was hosting a celebration. Laughter, clinking glasses, and confident chatter spilled down from the banquet hall like confetti. Daniel worked quietly, staying mostly invisible, though he noticed Clara, drifting from guest to guest, her usual poise slipping with every refill. By the time the crowd thinned, she was alone at the bar, head lowered, the night swallowing her in its loneliness. Daniel didn't judge her. He recognized exhaustion when he saw it. After losing his wife to illness 3 years ago, he too had drowned in grief, though he could never afford the luxury of breaking down in public. For Emma, he kept moving. Every mop stroke was an act of survival. Still, he wasn't expecting trouble. But when Clara staggered into the parking lot, followed by 2 slick-smiled executives, with 2 friendly intentions, Daniel instinctively stepped forward. He heard one of them laugh as she refused their offer of a ride. Something about their tone made his stomach twist. He saw Clara sway, saw her purse drop, saw the fear flicker in her glassy eyes. That was enough. He cleared his throat, heart pounding. He tried to speak respectfully, offering to help her home. The men glared, annoyed at their meddling janitor, but Daniel refused to back down. He knew what danger looked like. Eventually, after a tense exchange, the men gave up and left, still muttering insults under their breath. Clara collapsed against Daniel's arm, barely conscious. He wasn't sure where she lived, and she couldn't tell him, slurring words into tangled nonsense. He weighed his options, knowing he'd get fired if anyone saw him take her anywhere. But the idea of leaving her alone in the night burned his conscience raw. So he made his choice. He brought her home. His apartment was humble, walls a bit peeling, the air scented faintly with detergent and hope. He laid her carefully on the sofa, while Emma slept in the next room, unaware of the unexpected guest. He left Clara a blanket, a glass of water, and sat by the table, listening to the clock tick away the hours until dawn. When Clara awoke, confused and mortified, Daniel explained what happened. He didn't expect gratitude. He certainly didn't expect the fear in her face, thinking of what could have happened. But as soon as he left to wake Emma for school and head to work, part of him feared the consequences waiting. The next morning, Daniel arrived early, nerves coiled tight. Clara was a powerful woman with an image to protect. A story like this, mishandled, could ruin her. People in her world didn't like to feel indebted. They often erased their mistakes by erasing the people who witnessed them. All day, he kept his head down. Every footstep in the corridor felt like a countdown. When Clara finally appeared, her usual heels striking like authority, the air tensed. She stopped in front of Daniel. He froze, expecting the blow of dismissal. But she said his name instead, Daniel. Then she asked him to step into her office. Inside, she closed the door behind him, but didn't speak at once. Her eyes were different now, stripped of superiority. She looked at him like a person seeing another person for the first time. She said she remembered everything. She didn't pretend it was a blur. She described how he stood between her and danger, how he protected her dignity without asking for anything. Her voice trembled, her walls cracking. She apologized for the time she treated him as invisible. Daniel's shock was a quiet explosion inside him. Then she asked the question he least expected. Why did you help me? He thought of Emma, of teaching her to do right, even when nobody notices. He thought of humanity, that fragile thread binding strangers to each other. And he answered, because you needed someone. Clara's expression softened. She told him she wanted to talk more, but she knew he needed to work. Still, something had shifted. That day, when Daniel returned from finishing his tasks, he found a note taped to his locker asking him to meet her after hours. That evening, Clara asked to meet Emma. The idea made Daniel nervous. Emma was shy, her confidence delicate, but Clara approached her with warmth he had never seen before. Within minutes, Emma smiled, showing Clara her drawings taped on the fridge. Clara praised them with sincere wonder. Daniel watched, surprised at how naturally Clara fit into the tiny kitchen of his life. Over the next weeks, she grew more present. She checked on Daniel more often, not as a boss, but as someone who cared. She learned his story, how he once studied music before responsibility forced him into cleaning jobs, how he struggled balancing work and fatherhood, how he lost his wife yet never his gentleness. Meanwhile, Clara shared her own truth. Her leadership came with loneliness. The corporate world demanded perfection. A single mistake could bring vultures. That night at the party wasn't an accident. It was the breaking point of holding too much inside. Slowly, a friendship bloomed, fragile but real. Daniel had no expectation. His heart had been stitched too many times to risk tearing again. But Clara began fighting on his behalf. She got him promoted from janitor to facilities coordinator, better pay, reasonable hours. Respect. She enrolled Emma in an after-school art program, insisting the company sponsor exceptional employee families. Daniel tried to refuse, but Clara was stubborn when kindness drove her. People noticed. Rumors circulated, whispers about their closeness. Some scoffed, others envied, but Clara didn't shrink or deny anything. She stood taller, determined to protect the man who once protected her. For the first time, Daniel felt seen, but life always tests those who rise. One rainy evening, Daniel came home later than usual. His stomach sank when he saw the lights off and the apartment door slightly open. Fear exploded in his chest. He rushed inside, calling Emma's name, finding her curled in Clara's arms, both sitting on the sofa. Emma cried into Clara's shoulder. A power outage had frightened her. Clara had rushed over the moment she heard, staying until Daniel arrived. Seeing Clara there, caring for what he loved most, cracked open something inside him that he had kept sealed for years. He realized this boss he once feared had become part of their story. Days turned to months. Their bond deepened. Clara invited them to company events as honored guests. Emma drew pictures of their little family, now including Clara smiling beside them. Daniel dared to feel hope again, yet one evening Clara confessed a truth she had hidden. The board was pressuring her. That drunken night out had gotten leaked, twisted by office rivals who claimed she behaved recklessly. She was fighting to remain CEO. She feared she might lose. Daniel stood quietly, then took her hand without hesitation. He reminded her of the strength she had shown every day. He told her failure didn't define her. Courage did, and courage was something she had in abundance. Clara cried, but these tears weren't from fear. They were from finally having someone she didn't need to pretend for. The next morning, Clara faced the board. Daniel waited anxiously at home, cleaning the apartment to distract his nerves. Hours later, he heard a knock. Clara stood there, breathless, relief shining in her eyes. She had won, but instead of returning to a celebration, she came to him. Because she wasn't looking for applause, she was looking for home. She told him something that changed everything. She wanted to build a future together. With him. With Emma. With love that had grown from a single brave act. Daniel didn't speak right away. He looked toward the bedroom where Emma slept. He thought of the promise he made every night. A better life. A happier tomorrow. Slowly he nodded. Clara smiled with her entire heart. Dark and light, damage and healing, two lives had collided on one dangerous night, and that collision had rebuilt them into something whole. If this story touched your heart or made you believe in the power of compassion, please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps more people discover stories filled with hope and humanity. Before we finish, please comment below. Do you believe that one act of kindness can change a life forever? Daniel and Clara's journey wasn't perfect. It wasn't fairy tale magic. It was built from tears and struggle. From two souls learning that broken doesn't mean unworthy. Clara learned that strength could coexist with vulnerability. Daniel learned that love could return, even after unimaginable loss, and Emma got a family where laughter replaced loneliness. Sometimes, heroes don't wear capes or command attention. Sometimes they hold mops, work late nights, and give kindness freely when no one is watching. Sometimes salvation arrives not in the form of a miracle, but in the shape of a second chance. So when you cross paths with someone overlooked, someone quietly carrying weight, too heavy for words, remember Daniel. Remember Clara. Remember that every person you meet is battling something unseen. Offering dignity and kindness might just save a life. It might even save two. And somewhere in a warm little apartment filled with art supplies and soft smiles, a single dad finally sleeps peacefully. Because the future he once only whispered to his daughter is now a future he wakes up to every day. All because one night he refused to walk away.